On a moonless night on the Mediterranean, just off the coast of Cape Greco, a fisherman cast his nets into the deep, still waters. The night was silent, save the gentle lapping of the waves against his boat. Suddenly, a powerful tug nearly pulled him overboard, and he felt his net strain and tear under the weight of something enormous. He peered into the inky blackness, but he could see nothing beyond the faint glimmer of starlight on the water. Though he could not see the creature, he knew what it was. A sea monster, the Ayia Napa, said to haunt the waters around Cyprus.
So today, for Cryptid Court, we are going to be discussing the Ayia Napa sea monster. Had you heard of this before?
Yes, actually I had.
I hadn't.
I remember years ago I was going to make a video about it, or I sort of planned to. And I remember looking up, I think what caught my attention was that on some website it was like, oh, these B&Bs or hotels boast like a high probability of sighting the monster. Mm-hmm. And then I went to the website of like the hotel and it was really janky and old. And there was no mention of it anywhere on the website. Even like doing a search.
That's like a lot of seaside resort type places in places such as Greece, Cyprus, I'm imagining, because that's, you know, they don't need to spend a lot of money on their websites. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the thing I'm saying is that there was no mention of the monster on the actual website. It was just another like cryptid website that was like, oh, this hotel boasts that you can see the monster.
But maybe it's the kind of thing they wouldn't put on their website and they have it in paper form in their lobby or something.
Maybe, but we'll get into it a bit more, I guess. So what is this creature?
So it is a very specific creature to a location. Ayia Napa is a popular Cyprus resort, although I read one thing that said it's not as popular anymore. So it's a once popular Cyprus resort. And the sightings... What?
Because of the monster.
No. Well, the sightings have always occurred around Cape Greco, and they are not new, so it doesn't explain the tourism thing, because it's been about since the 4th century.
2nd century AD.
Yes, thank you. It's been around since the 2nd century AD, according to legend. And it is just a big tourist attraction, apparently, in Cyprus, or at this resort. Should I describe it?
Sure.
So it's just like a serpent thing with a lot of necks. There are many pictures of it, and it's complicated by people trying to link it back to Greek mythology. So it's hard to describe what it's supposed to look like. We don't have any actual pictures linked to any sightings. The only sightings we have are incidental, as in my fishing nets got damaged. We don't know what it looks like at all.
There are some descriptions, but they're really vague. Like on Destination Truth, which we might talk about a little bit, the show with Josh Gates, there was like an old woman and she said it had red eyes and sharp teeth, but that was like the only description she gave.
And how many red eyes and how many sets of sharp teeth did it have?
I don't know if they specified, actually.
So I have a couple of pictures on the notes. One picture is probably the most commonly used specifically for the Ayia Napa sea monster, and it has multiple heads and sort of some legs, maybe. But the most important thing is that it has long necks and multiple heads and necks.
It's very similar to a hydra. So if you didn't see multiple heads... Pretty similar to a hydra.
Yes, that is true. So many people, it's not clear whether they say the sightings date to the 2nd century because they have legitimate sightings from then, or if it's because that's when they can date the myth to. And the myth, you could consider that to be the same thing, or you could say it is totally different. The myth is the Scylla. In English, it's called the Scylla, and in Greek, it's called the Scylla. It is just a myth of a beautiful nymph from the Odyssey who got turned into a monster and then became a man-eater. There are multiple reasons for why she got turned into a monster that we won't get into, and different accounts vary. but she has a human torso, a serpent lower half, and she has dogs coming out of her thighs, mini dogs. So that can translate to the multiple heads and necks of the sea monster, but it's not really similar that much. The common quote about the heads is that it had more heads than the face painters could paint. So there's a pretty famous painting of the nymph turning into the Scylla and the dogs like bursting out of her thighs. Pretty scary, I guess. Yeah.
I think you can actually go and see it in the Temple of Dionysus or something. It's
Yeah.
open for tourists.
There's a temple, I'm not sure which one it is, but it is near Ayia Napa, the resort. So it features that painting, which is how people came to link them.
Mm-hmm.
In the story of the Scylla from the Odyssey, Odysseus successfully navigates the strait, but he and his crew are distracted by sort of Scylla's counterpart, Charybdis, which is a whirlpool. And so he's like trying to deal with that, and then Scylla snatches 6 sailors off the deck and devours them alive. There's a quote in translation that I put here. They writhed, gasping as Scylla swung them up her cliff, and there at her cavern's mouth she bolted them down raw, screaming out, flinging their arms toward me, lost in that mortal struggle. So, what do you notice about the legend of Scylla that is different than the legend of the Ayia Napa sea monster?
I think the obvious thing is the description. Like
Yes.
a woman with dog, like it's very loose. Like the only thing is multiple heads and maybe some serpent features.
And being in the water.
Yeah, but wasn't the Scylla like part of the cliff in some of the stories as well?
Maybe. That's a good point, because it's like, it's a saying similar to caught between a rock and a hard place. It's caught between the Charybdis and the Scylla, where you're like on one side is the whirlpool and the water, and on the other side is the cliffs or the... actually, some people say that it's totally metaphorical and it's not meant to be seen as a real thing at all. It just is a metaphor for the rocks and the reefs in the waters by the cliff. So
Yeah, because they destroy ships, and then it's like, oh, it's like, say, when people call like the sea, like, oh, she killed a bunch of sailors or something. It's like, oh, the cliffs and the rocks got a bunch of sailors.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing I would notice is that the Scylla is very violent. She's like grabbing people and making them go into the water and die. But there are no sightings linked to any deaths for the Ayia Napa sea monster. Isn't that true?
Yes.
In fact, right, some people call this monster Tophiligoteras, the friendly monster. It's just a friendly little guy. Nothing to be afraid of, right?
Yeah, the woman said that she was too afraid to go back into the water after she had a sighting. And I guess it's annoying for fishermen who say it destroys their nets, but it's not like... doesn't sound very vicious.
Mm-hmm. So, what are other explanations there could be?
Well, I guess I'll just spoil Destination Truth because it's like pretty old now. But they sort of came up with the conclusion that they thought it was a basking shark.
Really?
Yeah. I don't really know why. Because like for most of the show...
it was a basking shark that was stealing people's nets and stuff?
I guess they just figured a basking shark is big.
So they did a whole episode on this, and they just concluded that it's big. Maybe it's a basking shark. Like, they didn't have any sightings or anything.
Well, what they did was, okay, first of all, they had like a CGI model of like a giant crocodile or like mosasaur-like creature. And they made all these claims, which I don't know where they got it from. They're like, it predates by using its strong tail to smack into its prey to stun them. And it has 2 rows of like teeth and everything. And I was like, where do they get this from? Then they had like a few little sightings, and then a lot of it was like, you know how those shows go, it's like they're out at night and I saw something over there, where? And then the camera shakes and they didn't quite catch it on camera, so you just see a bit of a wave. And then like they found fishing nets at the bottom of the ocean, which they were like, oh, something destroyed these nets. It's kind of your standard reality TV of like ghost hunters or cryptid hunters.
So is it worth watching then?
Maybe not, but Josh Gates, the host, he's on Cameo.
Oh.
And
did you hire him for this podcast?
I was tempted to hire him to just be like, you're listening to the Wild World podcast or something. But he's a little pricey, so I don't know if I will.
How much?
Like $150.
Oh, no. That's too much for us. It's over our budget.
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Gates.
Give us a discount, please, if you're listening.
Yeah. Well, we didn't really give a glowing review of his show. I mean, it's fun, but it's...
Well, at least someone went out there and investigated this situation. That's something.
That's true. That's like... And these were like the only sightings that I could find where you could like... Because they are actually interviewing people. I don't know, like, you could say, well, how do you know they're not paid actors or something? But maybe they are, but it's more substantial than some, like, forum post or something, I think.
Yeah, basically all the information I found was in weird forum posts, so...
Yeah.
So there are some other explanations which are sometimes given for this monster phenomenon outside Cyprus in the waters. One is that they were pet crocodilians that were released in the area and are just going around in the water doing their thing. But these were found in the Cyprus Dam, which is not the same as Cape Greco. It's a dam, not the ocean, not the sea, and it's 126 kilometers from Cape Greco, almost 80 miles.
Yeah.
So that's not the same. Mm-hmm.
But the crocodile story is only a rumor. They're from like the early 2000s. So that's not even confirmed. There was this rumor in 2005 that someone smuggled Nile crocodiles from Egypt as babies, sold them. They got too big. Then a bunch of people released them in the dam. But the fisheries department spent a month searching the dam, did a full sweep 8 times, and found zero evidence of crocodiles being there.
Well, obviously they just let them loose, and then some crocodile collector snapped them up.
And moved them to...
his private crocodile reserve.
At Cape Greco. To be fair, it is like a cool place to have a monster, because there's like so many sea caves and underwater caves all around there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think it's crocodiles either. And I also, this is another thing, I watched a video of like this vlogger who went there on a boat trip, and the boat stops there and everyone like just jumps in and swims around. So I think that also means it's probably not a bunch of Nile crocodiles there. But she asked the captain of the boat about the monster, and he was like, I've never heard of that. And this is a guy who like lived there and took tours there like almost every day.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read an article written in Greek. It was talking about how there is no monster. It was actually so hard to find Greek sources for this. And the fact that most of the sources are in English really says something about like who's popularizing this rumor, right? They're just trying to make a sea or lake monster in every place, these people. You know, these lake monster fans, which we know Gates. About. So, because people like the Loch Ness model. Anyway, this article was talking about how there is no monster. It was like, I don't know why everyone's like talking about this monster. Or not even everyone. I don't know why some people are talking about this monster. It's just a copycat of the Loch Ness monster, and it's not real, and like, stop, basically. So yeah, I couldn't find any specific tales of sightings, just things trying to connect it to folklore for almost no reason, saying that had damaged the fishing nets. But if you think about what could damage fishing nets, sea rocks can damage fishing nets, and sea rocks are the alternate explanation for the Scylla. So it could all go in one circle, even if the Ayia Napa monster is the Scylla, then that means it's just rocks.
Maybe, yeah. I'm just thinking about those interviews as well. They were really, you know what I said, they were really vague. It was also like, I don't remember them actually saying like it was this monster. It was just like, it was huge, it was 2 tons, or it did something to my nets and I didn't see it. And I wonder if there was like some selective editing there.
Yeah, maybe he's like, oh, have you ever seen an elephant? They're like, yeah, I saw one at the zoo, it was huge. And then the next question was...
Well, it could just be like, did anything ever interrupt your nets when you were fishing? It was like, yeah, something big got into my nets once, didn't see what it was.
Huh.
Cut that, put it in. I wonder how much that show like put this monster on the map as well. Because it feels like it's just all these different pieces. There's this like rumor about crocodiles. There's this folklore myth from thousands of years ago, and then there's, I don't know, maybe some weird things in the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm. But if it was real, I think I would prefer it's the friendly monster versus the Scylla. Imagine if there was this cool friendly monster out there with a bunch of heads and you can just swim with it. We should definitely go there and go snorkeling. And we can't stop until we see something larger than a human body.
Okay.
Yeah.
We see a body floating in the water beside us. We'll just ignore it.
No, I mean, we can't stop snorkeling until we find something larger than a human.
Yeah. It does look like a nice place to go swimming. It's really clear. Yeah. And I bet it's really warm water if you go at the right time.
Yeah. We should auction off trips.
Auction them off? What do you mean?
We should have like little go to see a cryptid trip. People have to buy into it with a raffle system or an auction. And then the winner will go on the trip to see the cryptid and we'll go with them.
Basically, just pay us to go and there's a small chance you'll come too.
Yeah, that's what all these influencer, famous type experiences.
Just like us.
They're usually like that. And yeah, maybe some people would be interested. So if you are interested in paying for us to go to Cyprus and also coming with us, please let us know.
You're such an e-beggar, man.
Sponsoring us, like, we could get a sponsorship through Cyprus tourism. That would be good.
That's another thing where I couldn't stop thinking about watching this. I'm now obsessed with Josh Gates. I was like, he did do multiple cryptids in one episode. So they flew from LA to Cyprus with his team and like all their camera gear and scuba gear and all that. And then they also went to somewhere in East Asia to look for like some primate. So they do 2 each episode, but they fly around the world with a team and like camera crew.
Obviously, he should have planned it out better. Done like 2 European ones, then 2 Asian ones.
Well, maybe they did, but it's edited differently.
So what do we think? Is the friendly monster of Cyprus, the Ayia Napa sea monster, real?
Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't see any compelling evidence. If you want to see a good investigation, a so-so investigation, watch season 4, episode 13 of Destination Truth on Sci-Fi.
I don't know if I should say this or not. It's on Daily Motion as well.
Oh my gosh. You can also get it on Amazon Prime for $3. So,
yeah.
In case you're not a bad person who's going to get canceled for...
Or maybe you're region locked away from watching it.
Oh, were you? Well, you could just buy the DVDs of Destination Truth. Buy season 4 and then you can watch it.
It is fun to watch, like, for all our criticism. Okay, should we move on?
Yes. And we would like to know your opinions on the sea monster, especially if you're from Cyprus or Greece or Turkey, for example, any of those in the area. We have had some comments from people who live in the areas of the cryptids we've covered, and that's really cool. I like when that happens.